Hey everyone, you're listening to Party Time, My Golf Story with Kevin Walsh and whatever special guest he has today. You can check me out on episode 9 of the podcast. Today I'm wearing Grayson clothes while I'm out practicing because I believe in look good, play good. And follow me on Instagram, Sophia Warren Golf, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers. And the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at suncoastdreams.com. Now here's your host, Kevin Walsh.
Hey everyone, welcome to the program. We have a good one for you today. One of my longtime caddy buddies who I always enjoy a great conversation with, Steve Shaffer, is our guest. Talk about somebody that's been around the block in life, with golf, with caddying, just worldly experience with a lot of things. Acoustic guitarist, former actor. I don't know if you're ever former. You're just maybe not doing it at the moment, but just a fascinating guy. I've always enjoyed the conversations we've had with him. And he's going to weigh in on what he thinks the Ryder Cup's going to be like at Bethpage Black in New York, coming up pretty soon. And if anybody would know the feel of the Long Island Mail, and what exactly is the Long Island Mail, by the way, Stephen Shaffer is going to let you know. Before we go any further, we have some new clients coming on board with Party Golf Drinks. Big thanks to Summerfield Crossings Golf Club in Riverview, also Bloomingdale Golfers Club in Valrico, and Cypress Creek Golf Club in Ruskin. Thanks for coming on board. If you play golf there, folks, and make sure you patronize the girls on the golf carts and get yourself a party. For golfers, by golfers, far better than anything else that's being served on the golf course. And also the Par Bar. If you're looking for a place to play mini golf for corporate outings or whatever, the Par Bar in St. Pete, nice neighborhood mini golf course. Fantastic stuff. One of our new clients as well. And also a big thanks to the golf real estate pros of Gene Walsh, Samantha Walsh, and Vince Vizzacaro from suncoastdreams.com. If your dream is to live on a golf course like where this podcast originates from, Lakewood National Golf Club in Lakewood Ranch, Florida, just outside of Sarasota, Vince, Gene, and Samantha have you covered. Good time to buy, by the way, coming up against some quarters. So some of those home builders and everything, they're looking to move homes. It is a buyer's market. I'll tell you that. And after a round of golf, if you're really tired, if you want to unwind, if you want a cold water plunge, if you want a sauna treatment, red light treatment, whatever it is, then Violet Spa in downtown Sarasota has got you covered. All right. That's the housekeeping part of things. Here's my man, Steve Shaffer. God, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. We've had the podcast going for 2 years. I thought it would have happened sooner, but here we are. Steve, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Good to be with you, Kevin.
So tell me, where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you from Lakeland, Florida, and I'm just a couple of minutes south of downtown, just sort of right in the middle of everything.
All right. And for those not familiar with Lakeland, what's the nightlife like? What's the skyline like in Lakeland?
Lakeland is kind of like an old Florida town. You know, you've still got a train that goes right through the middle of town.
Perfect.
But the thing about it is that it is really growing in terms of population, people coming from other places. So there's more of a variety now of restaurants, culture. I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the next 5 years or so. It's getting on the map now.
It is. It's the fastest growing city in Florida, by the way. So they're going to need that stuff, and it's a great place to live. Really is. But where's home from you? Where do you originate from?
So I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I lived there until I was about 11 years old, and then we moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and I spent all my high school years there. And then I gradually migrated up to the Northeast, New Jersey, and then New York, and was there about 20 years total before moving back to Florida about 10 years ago.
Okay, so you just talked about how quickly Lakeland is growing. Jacksonville has grown a lot. My brother lived there some 25 years ago, and when he goes back, he's like, holy smokes, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah, Jacksonville saw a huge growth spurt in the 80s. My father was into economic development at the time, and he really saw the Southeast as a sleeping giant, and he had a lot of foresight. He was correct about a lot of things. Cities like Charlotte, North Carolina, Atlanta, even Greenville, South Carolina, Jacksonville, Florida. He was right about all of them, and he was able to help a number of cities, kind of put themselves economically on the map. And he loved what he did. So we wound up in Jacksonville, and he started working for the local Chamber of Commerce, doing a development drive for them, and it kind of went from there. So I loved it. I loved living down in Florida, and I loved the fact that you could be outside 12 months a year and doing a lot of things outside and really enjoying the what nature had to offer: sports, being on the water, all kinds of things. So it was a great place to be.
Steve Shaffer is our guest here on Party Time, brought to you by Party Drinks, the golf real estate pros of Gene Walsh, Samantha Walsh, and Vince Vizzacaro, and also BioLit Spa in downtown Florida. Steve, I don't know anybody that hasn't lived in Jacksonville that didn't absolutely love it. And but what was your neighborhood like? If you could take me back to the street you grew up on and what life was like back at that time, let me feel it.
Yeah, so I really want to take you back to Louisville, Kentucky, because that was really, we kind of lived on the edge of suburbia. We were right where suburbia meets horse country. So 10 minutes east of our neighborhood, it was horse farms. It was rolling hills. It got rural very quickly. And so that was really the formative experience for me. I had plenty of room to roam, had a lot of kids in the neighborhood who were my age. So we were always doing things. We were exploring. There was woods, about 200 yards from my house. We'd go down there. We'd play sandlot, baseball, football, all kinds of things, exploring the neighborhood on our bikes. We lived in a suburb, and it was huge, and there were lots of houses. There were lots of lawns. And so we were just extremely active. And of course, you had the Four Seasons there in Louisville. So there was, sledding in the winter, and in the summer, people would have like little, try to do this, fill like little backyard pools, things like that. So there was plenty to do all around. And then when we moved to Jacksonville, I was very, very fortunate. We actually lived in Sawgrass, the original Sawgrass in Ponte Vedra. So we lived in a condo for a long time, right on the edge of the old Sawgrass golf course where they used to play the Players Championship before they moved it across the street to the stadium course. So golf was just a really big part of my life, especially, starting around, age 9, 10, 11. We were sort of right in the middle of things.
Well, was it witnessing the golf that was around you? You're like, yeah, I want to take a try, or was it something more profound? Was it a family member or friend? Like, how did it start?
Yeah, so I started playing golf when I was 6, and my parents both played, and they belonged to a club out east of where we lived, about 20, 30 minutes out in horse country. But it was a, regular country club. You had tennis courts, you had a swimming pool. I mean, it's very nice. It's very, very Kentucky, had a very, very low key kind of feel, but it still had everything, that a country club would have. So I just kind of tagged along with them in the cart for a while. And then there were 2 or 3 other kids my age who played. And so the great thing about this place is they would let the juniors play in the early afternoons after, most people had gone out in the summer, and we carried our bags, and we played on this big rolling golf course. It actually has seen some notoriety lately. It's called Harmony Landing. And incidentally, it's where Mike Thomas taught his son, Justin Thomas, to play golf. So I found out that later when my mom used to send me clippings of young Justin Thomas, this up-and-coming golfer. So I've had my eye on him for quite some time. But it was a great place to learn the game. I remember my first clubs, someone donated some clubs to me. This is when, clubs for juniors weren't very prevalent. This was the early 70s. So I had 3 or 4 power-built clubs. I had a 9-iron. I had a 7-iron. I had a 5-iron with a wooden shaft. In fact, I don't think it even had a manufacturer to it. It may have been, just individually made for somebody back in the 30s, for all I know. And then a 3-wood. Those were my early clubs. And then about 2 years after that, I got kind of more of a regular set. But I still remember those early power built clubs and how fun they were to hit.
Yeah, I remember my first set of clubs. It was there wasn't a wedge. 9-iron was so like I treated a 9-iron like
no
I
wedge.
treated a wedge. I just fillet the thing open, and it was all it. And there was a 3-wood and a driver and a putter, and it worked. But I couldn't wait to get my first set. I mean, that was so good. Did the game come easily to you?
That's a good question. I feel fortunate in that I did a lot of things that require hand-eye coordination when I was young. I goofed around playing tennis, played football, basketball, baseball. Basically, I did everything in season, and all my friends did, and my older brother and sister did. So it was just natural for us to, whatever the weather was, to play that sport. So by the time it came to golf, swinging something, I'd swung a baseball bat, I'd swung a tennis racket. So it's not like it came super easy to me, but I got enthusiastic about it very quickly. And I became enamored with the game. And so in the wintertime, when it was February, March, when there was still snow on the ground, I kept, just bugging my parents, when can we go? When can we go play? When can we go play? And so they would say, soon. But I got the bug very quickly and very early.
I can just hear it in your voice, but I knew this, but it's obvious to everybody else how much you love the game and how important it is in your life. I like that you mentioned other sports, because I think the athleticism that goes with sports, tennis in particular, I think, well, you tell me if you agree. I think if you could play tennis and baseball as well, golf is just an endless series of singles up the middle. Yeah. Okay, if we keep it that simple, or flat forehands up the center of the court, and you hit through the ball. You don't hit the ball. Does this sound about right?
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. It's a very easy transition. There's not a lot of mental gymnastics that a coach, I think, has to do with someone who's learning golf for the first time. Even, hockey players who come to golf. I mean, they might have some issues, with, sweeping it or hooking it or whatever, but a lot of them are naturally strong anyway, and they can just adjust as needed to, have a really workable golf swing in a pretty short amount of time. I mean, everybody that I grew up with, I knew nobody who was golf specific, who was an athlete. That just wasn't a thing when I was a kid. And I love the fact that everybody did everything. I mean, Jack Nicklaus was like the big guy when I was growing up, and he played all the sports growing up in season. And so that was just kind of the model. My parents were the same way. They just did everything as it came,
I did the same thing. Once October was done, the clubs were away.
Yep.
I went on, did other things. I think I was better for it, because then I was hungry, and you don't have the overuse of muscles, and burnout came later with college golf. All right. But it's seasonal stuff. Love it. We don't see that so much anymore. Yeah. Maybe that's why kids are so good, but maybe why they burn out. So do you remember the first time you broke, say, 80?
Okay, I was trying to think about this. I don't remember the first time I broke 80 or 70. I've broken 70 a couple of times in my life, but I will say this, and I'm sure a lot of sons remember this. I do remember the day I first beat my dad. I think I was, maybe 14 or so, and I had gotten so close, for about 2 months, and he was giving it to me. I mean, every week, still can't beat the old man. That was the first thing that he would say to my mom when we walked in the door. Still can't beat the old man. Still can't beat the old man. And so
good.
We kind of had this going back and forth. It was nothing too salty. It was just father and son stuff, And so
that's a good thing though, because he didn't make it easy on you.
No,
right? Keep going.
No.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry. Keep going.
It's good. I mean, my dad was really good with making you be in the moment and earn it. To get a victory, because my dad, by the time that I was a teenager, he was like a low 80s kind of guy, and pretty consistently that way. And I was still like high 80s and working my way down. And then I reached this stretch where, for a couple months, all of a sudden I was, gates were opening to me in the game. And so the day I first beat my dad, I don't remember a particular shot that did it, but I remember just that self-confidence in terms of I can do this. now I feel like I'm at the next level. And the best thing about my dad too, in terms of how he took it, was when we got home, he didn't, use that phrase, my mom was waiting for us and, what happened, what happened? And dad was extremely magnanimous. He said, the kid finally got me and I couldn't be more proud of him. That's exactly what he should say and exactly how it happened. And everybody was great.
Well, I mean, if there's a man alive that doesn't want to make his dad proud, I don't know who he is. All right. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing like your father's validation for men, and you earned it. I mean, that's
true.
That's a beautiful thing. So you became a good player and you played throughout high school, played junior golf.
Yeah.
How much success did you have? And was there a moment where you're like, that guy's got a different gear. I just can never quite reach that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was a 5 handicap all through high school, and I thought that was good. I mean, I thought that was great. I can shoot in the 70s. I don't know too many people who can do that. But then I started playing some junior golf locally in Jacksonville. And of course, all the kids around there, are really good. So I got into these tournaments and I remember being so nervous. I remember me missing like a 1.5 foot putt on the first green in a junior tournament and thinking, man, I got a long way to go now. So basically when we would be playing high school matches, pretty soon I realized that I was not in the category of real A-lister. In fact, Len Matisse moved down from Long Island to Jacksonville when he was a teenager. And we used to play these high school matches, like 9 holes after school. So I remember playing against him a couple times. And I mean, breaking 40 for me was great. I just thought that was just a tremendous achievement, given all the pressures of being in a match situation. But for Len, he would just yawn his way to a 34 and just walk off and shake your hand and, thanks a lot. Thanks for being here. It was nice. It's nice having you. And he was a good kid. He was a good kid. He was very, very nice. But you could tell at the time, I could tell this is the first guy I'd ever been around who carried himself like an adult. He carried himself like a college player at age 16. He had this pre-shot routine. His shots sounded different than mine. His ball flight was different than mine. Everything was so consistent. And he wanted to make birdies. Like, he really wanted to make birdies all the time. Whereas, I was happy with pars and a couple of birdies sprinkled in. So he had a different mindset. He had a different, just way about him.
Kind of reminds me of Jim Furyk. First time I met him at a junior golf tournament, I thought we were playing football, playing golf. He was so intense. I'm like, holy smokes. I thought I had some burn in me. That's an inferno.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. You reminded me. I remember the first time I saw David Duval hit a shot. Now, David was on our high school team in Jacksonville. I was a senior. He was, I believe, a 9th grader. So he was still young and still developing, as a player. But his father, Bob, was the pro at Timuquana Country Club in Jacksonville. And then so he taught David. And David was on our high school team. The first shot I ever saw David Duval hit, I think it was the 9th green at Timuquana. It's par 3. He was short-sided and buried in a greenside bunker with basically no room to hit the ball. I mean, getting something to 15 feet would have been really great. We were on the tee. We were watching him play the shot. And this guy's he's a kid. He's 14, 15. He gets in the bunker, looks at the lie, shrugs, hits it out to about 8 feet, walks up, makes the putt, and walks off. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't have that shot. I can't make that shot. I don't have that kind of poise. Like, who is this kid? You know what I mean? So that just impressed me right off the bat. And I knew he was going to be good. I didn't know he'd be number 1 in the world. But, I've followed his career with great interest since then. And, kudos to him for everything he's accomplished.
They're all around us, Steve, especially in Florida. You just never know who's going to be the next guy. And we see, you and I know some, we caddy with them, guys chasing it, guys that have chased it. And it's like, why not them? I mean, God, that just tells you how good those guys are. Tell me this, if you ever had a golfing moment that just was so profound, it just seared your soul?
Yes, actually, this is a caddying moment. Actually, there are a couple, but so I caddy when I started caddying about 10 years ago. I was working at a club on Long Island, and they had an interclub match with another country club. And so I was caddying for a friend of mine who was actually a member of the other club. So he was actually officially the opponent, but I was caddying for him. So, I had to do right by him. The 18th hole at the course that we were playing, which was the course that I was caddying at, is the longest par 5 on Long Island. It's 640 yards. It's crazy long. The most of it is downhill, but it really doesn't seem that way because it's just such a huge hole and anything can happen. And so my friend basically was all over the hole, somehow needed to make 5 to win 1 up. And this was one of those moments where I was just trying to talk encouragement to him the whole time. You drove it left. Okay, fine. We got an opening. Just hit it across the fairway to the right, and then we'll be fine for our third shot. It just kept going and going and going and going and going. Finally, he hits a shot on the green. He's about 20, 25 feet above the hole, and it has this weird break to it, kind of a break that you wouldn't necessarily see unless, you were on the course a lot. And this is what I told him. It's downhill. It's going to break, about 2 feet or so. It looks downhill, but you're actually into the grain, so it's a little slower. So you got to feel like it's a little uphill. It's just one of those crazy putts where you have to trust it. And when he nailed that putt, I'm telling you, I felt like I made it myself. Could not have been more happy for him. It took all I had in me not to, prance around and throw the flag, down the hill. I mean, it was great. I remember that moment so well.
You're speaking my language because I feel the same way. When you put somebody on a good read, they made the putt, but you made the putt too. And that's the joy I get out of caddying. But back to the beginning of your caddying roots, how'd you find that job, or did it find you?
Well, I was in between jobs. I just left a long-term job. This is 2014. I was working actually in New York. I was doing something that I probably hadn't told you about. At the time, I was actually in small group ministry in Manhattan, and I had done that for a number of years. It was a very large church congregation, and I really, really loved the people. But being in a huge organization, kind of very, very corporate, and just I was kind of burned out, just kind of personally, and I think also with Manhattan at the time. I'd lived there for 15 years or so, and so my my respite, my therapy was actually going to Long Island and playing golf and seeing people. So a friend of mine, a friend of a friend recommended that I try caddying at this place where I wound up. It was an old Seth Rayner course, beautiful old school golf course in Nassau County. And I tell you, I didn't know if I would actually like it or not, because I thought to myself, if I'm on a golf course every day and I'm not hitting the shots, will there be no joy in it for me? So that was the big question that I had. But I'll tell you, within 2 or 3 days of doing it, it didn't matter. It didn't matter that I wasn't hitting the shots. I was on a beautiful golf course. I was with really, really nice people. I was, being active. I was out in the sun, and I was on the grass, as we would say. So the very fact of being on the grass was the thing that really did it for me. And the interactions that I had with the people out there, I took to it really quickly. Actually, it wasn't the first time I'd actually caddied. Me and my friend Chin, who caddied with me up on Long Island, we used to caddy for each other in local qualifiers up there in Connecticut, Long Island, New York, northern New Jersey. so we just started doing that just to help each other out, to try to get in some of these local tournaments. And even just doing that, I just found so much joy and so much passion for it. It would just seem like a natural fit. So we just kind of went from there.
Well, I think you expressed how I feel exactly. I knew who you're talking about with Chin. And I think it was around the golf that I was playing with you, and the only time that we've played together, and Chin, that you shared with me something that floored me. You said you once had a hellacious temper, which doesn't square with the Steve I think I know and the golfer I saw that day. You want to confess a little bit? What happened?
Well, if you talk to Chin, he can absolutely 100% verify this.
No, I believe it, because you told me what happened, a turning point.
Yeah. So how should I start this? So a lot of people see me as very calm, composed individual, and that's completely fine. But there's a lot of fire in the belly over a number of things, some important things and some not important things. When I was in my early 40s, I reached a stage where I was finally getting some really, really good golf instruction. So there was about a 6-month period where I got down to scratch for the first time, which is a huge milestone for me. Mid 70s, upper 70s had been, completely acceptable for me for a long time. But then I finally, kind of got a taste of what being a really good player could feel like. So when I got down to scratch, my expectations went up. But the problem is, I was in a situation where I wasn't able to play and practice as much as a scratch golfer needs to keep that kind of index. So whenever anything went wrong, which of course it's going to do if you're only like playing twice a week and maybe practicing, here and there when you can, things just aren't going to go your way all the time. So I used to joke that for a time I could have won an Olympic medal for club throwing. I mean, it got bad. And my friend noticed it, and I really wasn't embarrassed by it because I thought, this is showing my ferocity. But then something happened, and this is a turning point. I mean, I say this like, sometimes an alcoholic will say, it was that moment where, I almost killed someone in my car, and all of a sudden I realized I had to stop drinking. I don't want to be overly dramatic, but it was one of those moments. We were playing this really nice public golf course up in the Bronx, and I had just missed a makeable birdie putt on a really hard long par 3. And I think it was just a couple months worth of frustration came out, and I went to swipe my ball off the green. And instead of swiping my ball off the green, I swiped my ball plus some really nice turf that was about, 6 inches from the hole. And my blood ran cold. And I said, have I really gone this far? Am I really taking this way too seriously? Am I taking myself too seriously? Am I making the game am I being
making you miserable?
People actually don't play golf around because of these outbursts. And I tell you, from that moment on, I just feel like I was different. I almost felt like God was saying, just relax, enjoy the game. You don't have your name on your bag. It doesn't mean all of that. And I actually started really enjoying it more without any outbursts. And I played great. I played fine, given all that I could do. But it was just that moment it was like, I remember my dad saying when my dad quit smoking, he said, I was looking around at all the trash cans that were in the house, seeing if there was a cigarette butt that I could, somehow get one more toke out of. And he said, I had to look at myself in the mirror and say, my God, has it come to this? And so that was that moment for me. And so thankfully, as a turning point, from that point on, I have just thoroughly enjoyed the game, without the outbursts. And it's just been great.
Well, I've enjoyed the brief times that we've played golf together. And I'll share with you because you shared like something that's kind of personal. The last club I threw was a round of golf with my dad and my dear friend Will Riley, who's been a guest here on Party Time, My Golf Story, 3 times. Yeah. And I missed a green with the sand wedge, and I hurled that thing so far. My dad retrieved it, and he came back with fire in his eyes. I have never feared my dad. It was like the fear of God coming at me. I don't remember what he said. I think he grabbed onto my shoulder, but I was mortified by my behavior. I was so embarrassed.
Right.
And maybe I needed that too. And
absolutely.
It's just, we got to hit the bottom before
It's so true. It's so true. It's stupidity, combined with this like mental crookedness. I remember playing by myself as a kid, and I hit this horrible shot, and I threw the club, but actually threw it 100 yards behind me. And I thought, look, if you're going to throw the club, at least throw it toward the green, you idiot. So we've all been on that side of things.
Of course. And when I see it in others, I see a part of myself, and I'm like, he needs to cross the bridge. You too. Yeah. So you were an actor in the past. Yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, here's how I started acting. And this is God's honest truth. When I was young in Louisville, let's say, 8, 9, 10 years old, playing all those seasonal sports, and let's say we were playing football, to liven up the game a little bit, I would actually feign an injury when I was at the bottom of the pile. Let's say I, try to run it for like 3 or 4 yards, and then people tackled me. I would just try, I didn't do this all the time, but sometimes when I would try to, like, oh, my leg, and guys all of a sudden were like over me, like, are you okay? Is your leg broken? And I realized the power of, not only the imagination, but to be able to sway people and have them believe something. And there was something in that. It sounds awful, but, I had a real creative imagination. I read a lot as a kid, and growing up naturally as an introvert, a lot of introverts have kind of a big fantasy world that they live in. There's a lot of famous actors who've been this way. Henry Fonda, Jimmy Stewart. They were not these huge extroverts. They were introverts who could rise to the occasion. And the thing about
Michael Jackson, for instance, they're painfully shy.
Yeah.
And they needed the stage to release the creativity or just another side of themselves.
Right. What it does is it gives you license to be someone who is completely unlike yourself, who would make different choices, who would act, say, and do things that you normally just wouldn't do. And it's that permission slip. It's that freedom to explore those kind of characters and all their good and all their bad, which was so thrilling to me. I mean, I remember watching when I was in 7th grade, I watched The Wizard of Oz at my school. And I thought to myself, I could do that, because in 3rd grade, I'd been like the narrator in the school play. And I remember being so nervous, but so excited at the same time, and loving the fact of getting up in front of people and from memory, reciting a speech. And so I got into a play, when I was in high school, and then it just steamrolled from there. I loved it. I love not only the things that I've talked about before, but I actually loved that it was very, very creative, and it was also an ensemble. You weren't the only one. You had people to, play with. You had people there on stage who were reacting to you, and you got to know them as people, and there was a lot of trust and a lot of fun, and we're all doing something together to accomplish the same objective. And it was really that same way. I became a theater major in college too, and just loved every minute of it.
Did you do it in New York?
So when I moved to New York, I took I studied a specific technique in New York, studied for about 2 or 3 years, took a number of other classes, kind of in other disciplines. And I would say acted for a couple of years. After that, I took a full-time job that was more along the ministry lines, and that took over my life for a number of years. And it was great because it was, it was being around people. It was doing something that I absolutely loved. I think what happened is in the early 2000s, I put theater down, and then I just never picked it back up. It wasn't, and it was fine. It was okay. There were other ways that I was able to stoke my creativity, because it's just a great place to do that, New York.
Did you sing and dance?
I wasn't trained as a singer. I love to sing. Can't dance, but I love all of it. In fact, looking back, the people who really work in the industry, especially a town like New York, they're the people that do musicals. They're the people that can sing and dance. They're the people who, go to the big, they're in the crowd pleasing shows. And so as a vocational decision, the more ways you can market yourself, the better you are. And so I really admire those people, because they're a triple threat.
Oh, I do too. Oh my God. I love going to Broadway. When I lived in Philadelphia and Boston, I would take the train down just to see a show, and I get out of town, and I would look at those people and I'm like, God, are you talented? You're so talented. Can some of that talent fall off on me, please?
Yeah. To this day, I can actually recognize an actor like in a movie who's probably studied dance, to tell you the truth, even though I don't know an awful lot about dance, because the way they carry themselves, the way they tend to just glide across, a room, they have a real sense of repose and sort of a quiet power and elegance. You can just really tell it in a person, and it's something that I really
you can, because you have that trained eye, and I think we have it with golf. Don't we know a good golfer the second we see him?
Oh my gosh, yeah. As soon as you get to the first tee, and you can tell the way a guy pulls the club out of his bag and starts to take just a couple of practice swings and thinking about, his pre-shot routine, the way he looks down the hole, you can say, oh, this guy's a 5 or better. Definitely.
100%. We can spot him a mile away. I mean, I think I can do it just looking at his clubs, the wear marks on his clubs, kind of clubs he has. If there's a ball retriever in there, we know what we're in store for.
Has it been regripped, the ball retriever?
I don't know, but if you're trying to present yourself as a good golfer, get the ball retriever out, because you're sending a signal that you don't want anybody to pick up on.
Exactly.
So the theater stuff, I know you have a creative side, love music. You play music. What do you play?
I play acoustic guitar, and I started that really back in the 90s. Some friends of mine played, so they showed me some stuff, and I'm one of these people who listen to a lot of acoustic music growing up, a lot of singer-songwriter stuff from the 60s and 70s, and I just loved that. It made me want to think, what are those notes? I wish I could play those notes. So I had a couple of friends who played, and I did it for a couple of years and then kind of put it down. And then about 6 years ago, I realized there was a kind of a big hole in my life, creative wise, artistic wise. And I thought, music, that's the gap, because I grew up in a very musical family. My father played the trumpet. He was like in a drum and bugle corps before World War II when he was a teenager. My mom and my sister played piano. My brother played clarinet. I played piano for a couple of years growing up, and just kind of grew out of it a little bit when I hit adolescence. There were just a number of things I wanted to do, but I always wanted to play an instrument that was portable, that I could just sit in a chair and play, that I could sit under a tree and play. And that was really the thing that took me to guitar. So, it's one of those things that it just gives me a lot of joy. And even, playing songs that I grew up loving is great, but also just coming up with, I'm a big language person. I love language, literature, poetry. So I'm in the process of, writing some songs, creating some songs. I have a bunch of titles. I probably have about 30 titles for songs. I just don't have the song yet. So it kind of works that way for me.
But you're creating stuff. I'm so jealous of people of you being able to play guitar and play it well, and piano. If there were any two instruments, I would start with piano and then guitar, because they're so versatile. You don't need that much. It's enough. And for me, it's all about the singing. And I bet you didn't know that about me. Love to sing. Karaoke
good.
king.
Good.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta break the ice, right? Like the nights where you go out and sing, folks in the States call it karaoke, but it's really karaoke. It's Japanese.
Yeah.
Everybody must do it. And once you do it, I think you'll be hooked, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I've done it. Yeah.
Oh, it's nothing better.
A lot of the second generation Koreans that I knew in New York, they dragged me to some karaoke bars. We had a great time.
Oh, it is a good time. We got to talk about the Ryder Cup. All right.
Yeah.
I am looking for. I know you're more geeked up about it than me, and I heard you say a term which I kind of got. I wonder if you coined it, but I know you can explain it. The fans that are going to be at Bethpage Black on Long Island, and you mentioned the Long Island Mail. What is that?
Okay, so the Long Island Mail it's not a phrase that I coined. There was a guy who played the top 100 courses in the world. And when he got to Bethpage Black, he had a paragraph where he started talking about the Long Island Mail. And I just laughed out loud because I said, I know that guy. I know all those guys because for about 10 or 12 years, I played a ton of golf at Bethpage. I kept my handicap there. I mean, I was one of these guys who would take the train from Manhattan to Long Island, get on like a 4 a.m. train, get out to Farmingdale, take a cab to the course. And what I would do is I would play twice during that day because as a single, all the people who sleep in their cars get the early tee times. So what I would do is, and a lot of people don't realize this, Bethpage has 5 golf courses. It's a huge property. It's a state park. People ride horses there. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. So I would play like the blue course or the red course in the morning, and they would give you this like little bracelet on your wrist that showed that you had a tee time on the black at like, 2:30 in the afternoon. So I'd spend the whole day out there. I'd walk 36 holes. I mean, I'd just be, dead by the end of the day, but just loved it. But you do realize that you run into these guys out there at the park, and it's great because Long Island is, there are a lot of people that, it is attached to New York. So there are a lot of people that, make a lot of money out there, but Long Island is a series of small towns. And so you've got the teacher, the construction worker, the accountant, all kinds of people in all kinds of vocations. But the thing about it is, you realize when you move to New York that people are extremely direct there. I didn't grow up in a culture like that, but because of the fast-paced nature of the city, people have to be direct, Like when you're stepping off a subway car, you got to do it fast because there's 50 people behind you who need to get off.
They'll run you over.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah, there's just a cultural understanding. So in terms of where that hits Long Island is, and I'll read you the description from this guy that had that talked about it. He said, I would comment that the Long Island Mail, though, is a unique breed. They're a cross between 2 distinct and not necessarily complementary personality traits. Half the time charming, funny, and entertaining, and the other half in-your-face obnoxious. Staying to have a beer in the clubhouse after the round is mandatory so you can soak up the true attitude of the Long Island Mail in all his regal splendor. You'll no doubt remember it.
I love that.
These guys, they are right up there. I mean, they there's no filter. They hold nothing back. I remember we were on the first tee of the blue course one day, and this is like 6 a.m. because people are teeing off at 5:15 in July, and there's no mulligans at Bethpage ever because you got a mile of people behind you. So this is a guy. He's right out of Central Casting, black V-neck sweater, gold chain, rings, hair slicked back. His name is Dom. I mean, I'm not making this up. This is Dom.
Love it.
So we're playing with Dom. Dom hits a ball off the first tee, goes about 10 feet to the right, just barely glances the ball. Now, the starter must have been otherwise engaged because normally the starter has an eagle eye on you, and he's like, all right, next player up, But for some reason, the starter must have been doing something else. So Dom hits this glancing blow. The ball goes about 10 feet to the right, and he turns around to us, and he goes, is that a do-over? we're like, Dom, you do whatever you want. You're fine with us.
Can I, Steve, stop for just a. Did Dom happen to be in garbage collection?
We call it cartage. That's the industry, the official term.
Okay.
The carding industry. Yes.
Okay. Was he involved in? Was it that kind of a Dom?
I didn't ask Dom a lot of personal questions. But it's funny, that description of half really funny and engaging and half in your face obnoxious just describes these people to a T. And, I had plenty of meals in the clubhouse afterward, and these guys are great. They're so memorable. They've got tons of stories. They're not necessarily interested in your opinion because they're spending most of their time telling you what their opinion is. And that's okay. That's fine. That's fine. So these guys are going to be out in droves at the Ryder Cup. Now they have raised the prices a lot, is what I heard. Maybe trying to get more of that corporate buy rather than the hoi polloi out there. But there's still going to be plenty of guys. I think it's going to be a really raucous atmosphere. Obviously, it's at a course that kind of lends itself to that, and huge crowds, huge grandstands. My only hope is that there's not a fan incident that affects play. Like, you can be as rowdy as you want. I wish people wouldn't demean other players or insult them. You don't want any of that. Some of that's going to go on. But I just hope that somebody doesn't shout something when someone has a really important putt or, in the middle of a backswing.
Well, because that would be a cardinal sin. Okay.
Well, it would be, but to these guys, it's just rooting. Some of these guys, it's a shame. So it's funny.
I'll tell you, you were at the U.S. Open in 2000, right?
2002.
2002. Was that Sergio and the regrips?
When Tiger won. Is that the one you're talking about? 2002 when Tiger won at Bethpage?
It's the one I'm thinking of because of the fan involvement was
with Sergio.
Sergio and the regrips, and then the comment at Sergio, because Sergio was dating Martina Hingis, the tennis player at the time, and Tiger was dating Elin. They weren't married yet, and all the cameras are on them, and Sergio goes walking by. There's a single shot with the camera, and there's a boom mic somewhere near some Yahoo guy, and he yells, "Hey Sergio, Tiger's girlfriend's better looking than yours." And Sergio just stops and just shakes his head like, "Oh," and they kept going. And I'm like,
yeah.
Wow. Only in New York would that happen. Any of that stuff? What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've, kind of taken some shots at these guys, and I hope I'm not being unfair, because the thing that I notice being out there is when these kind of guys befriend you, I mean, they would literally go to the mat for you. I mean, if you're ever in trouble, or if you're ever, wanting, once you're part of the family, their loyalty to you is just unbreakable. And it's very heartwarming, the fact that they would entertain a stranger. When I started working on the course, at the club on Long Island, I mean, I didn't know anybody. And, all these guys were, grew up on the island, and, you're very used to it. They didn't have to be nice to me. They could have, given me a really hard initiation. But I'm telling you, from the get-go, they were warm and outgoing and gracious. I mean, I'm talking the other caddies as well as the members. And the members were fantastic. Some of the best people you could ever meet. But the caddies just as well. I mean, they just took you right into the fold. They said, "Look, you're one of us now. So here we go." And we had tons of laughs in that caddy yard. We just, every day was memorable. I love being with those guys. I miss them.
Well, I think being around golf, you're just around interesting people, and you said it at the beginning, you're around happy people. Where else would you rather be than on a golf course? And you just have such a head start with that alone. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's going to be a good day until it's not a good day, and it would take an awful lot to make it a bad day, and it almost never happens. Steve Shaffer is our guest here. He's one of my caddy buddies. Big thanks to our title sponsor, Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try a Party. If you don't have Party at the place where you play golf, then get in touch with the beverage manager or also the head pro and say, we need this stuff here for golfers by golfers, and that makes all the difference. If you're looking for golf real estate, if you want to live at a place like Lakewood National Golf Club, where this podcast originates from, nobody better than the golf real estate pros, Vince Visicaro, Gene Walsh, and Samantha Walsh from suncoastdreams.com. And if all that golf has got you worn out and you just need to recharge the body, then go to BioLit Spa in downtown Sarasota. You'll get recharged there. I could see you a day at the spa, Steve. I could see that with all the abuse we put our bodies through caddying, but it's a good kind of hurt when the day is done. Speaking of caddying, Steven, what do you think makes a good caddy?
I would say patience, having a positive attitude all the time, as much as you can, and caddying to the player, because you're going to get like a 17 index, and then you're going to get a guy who's like a 2 or a woman or whoever it is. And, for that 17 index who can't fly it more than 170 yards in the air, I'm not going to tell him to try to hit it over that hazard on that par 5. We're going to be laying up, and I'm going to try to put it in a way that's playing to his strengths as a player. Like, let's manage your game as well as we can under the circumstances. And, he knows what his limitations are. Whereas, the 2 or the 1 index who can hit it really far, most of the time he's fine with risk reward golf. And I'll, lay it out for him, say, here's what could happen if we do this, or you can always do this, and, give him the option, because, a lot of times those guys are more aggressive anyway and just, want to do it. If there's definitely something where it's most of the time not going to work out, I'll say, listen, it's just my job to advise you. You can do what you like. Here's what I would do in this situation. But I think what I enjoy most is taking like the middle handicap player who has some questions about his or her own ability and helping them to play the best that they can during that day. Help them to make like a couple of putts that they didn't think they could make, to even the match or something like that. That gives me the most joy, really. It's helping someone who feels they're mediocre, and all of a sudden they hit 3 or 4 shots and they think, wow, like I'm okay.
Obviously, golf plays a profound role in your life, but in your words, why don't you just tell me what it means to you?
Golf was always my therapy, my respite, my kind of zone where you got outside the crazy anxiety-ridden world. It was always a place of escape for me as a kid. I mean, I would go out when we moved down to Florida. I would play like 3 or 4 holes the last hour and a half of the day, and it was quiet, and you could see the sun go down, you could see the trees and the water, and it was just this beautiful, bucolic, pastoral kind of setting. And it's still that way to me. It was always like a place of escape. It was. I described golf as my therapy. When life gets kind of crazy. It is a sport, obviously. It's not. It's not necessarily the meaning of life, but for me, it's always been a steady companion. Started with family and friends, and I've met a lot of great people through it. I still love it. We don't play as much as I used to play, but I still love the game. I love other people playing the game. I love watching it on TV. There's so many things that the game can teach you. It's ultimately the game that you'll never master. As good as people get, it'll just never be mastered. And so because of that, it has always this humbling effect on people. And you will see it. You'll see pros, buckle under pressure. You'll see people who should hit shots all of a sudden hit, bad ones, and it comes out of nowhere. So it's a tremendously humbling game, but it's also really rewarding because it's physical, it's mental, it's emotional. It's something you can do with your friends. I mean, what other game can you play outside and, smoke a cigar and have a drink and walk along and talk with your friends while you're doing it? I mean, it's great. It's competitive. It's fun. It's community.
And for community, love that word. For men, you need the event that brings them together. And we see those groups of men that come back and they do it every year, a different place or whatever. And it's beautiful to see. But without golf, it would be hard to keep that group together. How old are you, Steve?
58.
How much longer are you going to caddy?
Don't know. Open question. So far, my body has been cooperating. I've got to do a lot of stretching and, make sure, I eat right in order to do this job effectively, especially, when you're walking and being out in the sun. The summer gets really, pretty bad here in Florida. I don't know. I mean, at least for the near term, if you find something you enjoy, why not keep doing it at least for a while?
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Getting down to the end here. If you had one golf to tip and you're qualified to offer a tip that would help anybody, what would it be?
Great. Can I tell you that? And then one Long Island story?
Absolutely.
Okay. Right. So the tip would be, okay. So I had this guy about 3 months ago and we were 150 out. I mean, everybody knows this yardage, so we're 150. I say, 150. And he says, I have a gap. I said, what do you mean? He said, it's between clubs for me. So, we already know, okay, hit the 7 or hit the 6. Okay. So then we got to 100 yards and he said, I have a gap. I said, wait a minute, you have a gap 150 and 100 and probably 120 too. So, he felt like he was always in between clubs. So it was kind of a joke between us. So the lesson here is learn to hit those tweener shots. It's not hard. If you're 3 or 4 yards or 5 yards outside of your wedge range, learn how to hit a grip down 9-iron. I'm telling you, you can pick this up in 10 minutes on a range with the help of someone who knows what they're talking about. It's great, especially when you play in the wind. You use these shots all the time. People are used to their stock yardages. They say, oh, I hit a 7-iron 150 yards. Well, yeah, I mean, at sea level with no wind and, you're not hitting uphill to a green, but most of the game is adaptation. And so, gripping down and hitting the longer club usually will really help you because you'll swing smoother. You'll actually hit the club 3/4 because you won't have this massive backswing. And also the ball flight will come out lower so it won't balloon, if you're in a windy situation. Once people learn to do this, they really enjoy the game a lot more. They start making their own decisions. The other thing I would say is if you're in a fairway bunker with a lip, and I've seen this so many times, do not hit the 5-iron, hit the pitching wedge, get it out, get back on the fairway and learn to live another day.
Get back to honest. So you can use this. I have the 80% rule, and this goes back to my broadcasting days, having covered a lot of criminal trials. To convict something beyond a reasonable doubt. There's no such legal term as a shadow of a doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt. And roughly speaking, it's 80%. Yeah. So I always tell my players, if you are not 80%, you can get that over. You keep clubbing down till you're at 80%. All right. You can have a little doubt. I like that. You can have a little doubt. All right. But you got to be sure of it. Okay. Final thing. What's the Long Island
last story? Okay. So this will encapsulate a little bit of Long Island for you. This actually happened to my friend Danny, who was the first person I met when I started working at the country club there. Danny was a great guy. Very first time he met me, greeted me with this big smile, wanted to know all about me. I mean, he's a friend for life. Very, very dear guy. But when you have a situation where you have longtime caddies and longtime members at a country club, there's a lot of comfort because you know each other personally. So sometimes you can say things that you wouldn't normally say. They're a little bit off the grid. They're not necessarily disrespectful. They're just kind of digging, because the players love to dig at you a little bit. So sometimes you can dig back if you have that personal relationship. So Danny is caddying for this guy. He's a good player. It's like a 5 handicap. Plays all the time. He's a guy you really want to caddy for. Great sense of humor, really intellectual guy, great guy to be around. Well, halfway through the round, he starts hitting these hosel rockets. He's a left-hander, and so these balls are going like straight left. Now, the course that we were at, once you get to like number 8, 9, and 10, for example, 9 and 10 are both par threes. If you hit the ball straight left, you have to walk 60, 70 feet down a huge hill. You've got all this heavy rough. I mean, it's a nightmare even just to walk down to try to hit the ball down there. So the guy does it on 9, the guy does it on 10. And, Danny's like, what in the world's going on? And he starts doing it. So by the time they get to the 12th fairway, he hits a decent drive. He's out there. So Danny says, all right, we got 152 to the pin and 70 to the trees on the left. And that's it. He just stops and just looks right at the green. And the guy looks
stop,
at him.
Stop.
Yeah.
Steve, stop for just a sec. Sure. Back up what you just said about 20 seconds. All right. Just because the Wi-Fi went out for a sec. I want to make sure I get this. So where you left off, where I could last hear it, Danny said something to the guy. All right.
Yeah. So the guy's been hitting these, hosel rockets, left-handed shanks, most of the front 9. So they get to the 12th hole. The guy hits a decent drive in the middle of the fairway, and Danny's just at the end of his rope because he's been chasing golf balls for the last hour. And, where does it end? We still got 6, 7 holes to play. So the guy hits a decent drive, and they're out there. And so Danny says, all right, we've got 152 to the pin and 70 to the trees on the left. And that's it. That's the information. And the guy's like, what? Meanwhile, the guy's partner is dying. I mean, he is just doubled over in laughter. And the guy goes, did you hear what my caddy just said to me? And Danny says, listen, I told you. We got 152 to the pin. We got 70 to the trees on the left. So that was just making light out of a horrible, horrible situation. But the fact that he had that relationship with him, everybody was laughing by that point. It was just great, Yeah. But that's a little bit of Long Island, kind of knife twisting in a really good way. I heard stuff like that all the time, and I loved it.
That was a Long Island male before the phrase was coined.
Exactly.
It was Danny all along. We didn't know. Wow.
Yeah, Danny's an Irish Catholic. He's not going to hold anything back. He's just going to let you have it. He's great.
Perfect. He's in my tribe, my kind of guy. Steve, really enjoyed the conversation. I told you we talked for a half hour. We just talked for an hour, but time flew. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I know everybody else did as well.
Definitely, Kevin. Really great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Good times. Steve Shaffer has been our guest here on Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by BioLit Spa in downtown Sarasota. If you're a little beat up after a round of golf, go to BioLit Spa. They'll take good care of you. If you're looking for golf real estate in the Sarasota area, nobody better than the Golf Real Estate Pros of Vince Vizzacaro, Gene Walsh, and Samantha Walsh from SuncoastDreams.com, a division of fine properties and Party Drinks. If you're looking for a drink alternative on the golf course, try a Party. You'll be glad you did. For Steve Shaffer, I'm Kevin Walsh. We'll see you again next time on Party Time, My Golf Story.
You've been listening to It's Party Time, My Golf Story, brought to you by Party Drinks. Classically designed golf drinks for golfers by golfers, and the golf real estate pros Gene Walsh and Vince Vizzacaro. For your Southwest Florida real estate needs, check them out at SuncoastDreams.com or call 941-220-4000.